Thank you so much for tuning into the first episode of People Are the Answer. I'm Jeffrey M. Zucker, a serial entrepreneur in real estate, cannabis, graphic design, film production, and more. I was raised to understand that all of our actions should create positive impact, and my dad preached the mantra Tikkun Olam, repair the world in Hebrew. I've tried to ingrain that message into all that I do. There are so many in the world that weren't fortunate enough to have the upbringing that I did, and there are so many people in need. It's really important that the fortunate use that fortune to help others and improve the world. And I hope this podcast highlights that and inspires people to make a difference. I've wanted to start a podcast for a long time, but I wasn't exactly sure of the angle to take. It recently occurred to me what a strong network I've built of amazing people putting themselves out there to change the world for the better via both business and nonprofits. I realized the focus on innovators and social impact was the right direction. The name says it all. People are the answer. I truly believe that people are the only answer to the world's biggest problems. I hope to take listeners on a journey to discover how individuals are creating outsized, transformational impact. I expect their words will inform others and inspire them to change the world as well. I also seek to give these individuals a little bit of spotlight, which many of them rarely let themselves have. I'm aiming to have engaging, fun conversations where my guests feel comfortable opening up and letting us in. While it will start with people I know, I hope as the podcast grows that I will be talking to people outside of my network as well. When I decided to move forward with this project, I immediately knew who my first guest had to be. He's someone I've been in awe of since we met freshman year of college, and we've gone on to be longtime business partners and best friends. Also, I figured starting with friends would be the best way to ease into the podcast and a way to assure chemistry up front. Alex Hodara is a lifetime entrepreneur whose most notable endeavors have been in real estate and his incredible after-school program, Rocket Club. Alex was an Ernst Young Entrepreneur of the Year finalist and was listed on the Forbes 30 Under 30. He's a big kid at heart working to build the community he wishes he'd had growing up. Over the years, I've seen Alex touch so many lives with his work in unimaginable ways. I have a strong belief that business is the most powerful vehicle for change. It's not always obvious for some to see how businesses can dramatically improve the lives of others, and Alex has been one of the best I know at demonstrating that. The opportunity Rocket Club is providing for its students is like nothing I've ever encountered, and I'm so excited to continue to watch its evolution. Without further delay, here is the first talk on People Are the Answer with Alex Hodara. Alex, thanks so much for joining the first episode of People Are the Answer.
Jeff, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor.
When I was coming up with the concept for this podcast, Innovators and Social Impact, you were definitely the first person that came to mind. I'm fortunate to have you as a longtime business partner and one of my best friends. And, I couldn't think of anyone better to have on first.
I'm honored, man. We've known each other since we were 18 years old. So for you to say that really means a lot. Appreciate that.
Of course. And if you could just start off by telling everybody how you got where you are now.
Sure. So I'm lucky that I started my entrepreneurial career when I was a teenager. I started by importing poker chips from China, rebranding them and selling them on the internet. All my friends and I were all interested in poker. So kind of a similar story to you where you were starting your entrepreneurial career by starting your hockey team when you were a kid, something that we were just interested in, right? All of our friends were interested in. So that's how I started. Then I went to college. I got my real estate license freshman year of college, started renting apartments to my friends. And then, it was the partnership with you that really started to take my career to the next level. I started to sell buildings. The first building I ever sold was actually to you. And then we started a property management company, started to learn how to actually develop the buildings that we were selling and managing. And now I own a portfolio of buildings between Boston and Jersey City that led me to be able to start Rocket Club, which is really a passion project of mine, something that I'm really proud of. And it's been unbelievable to build over the last 3 years. It's an academy for children 7 to 14 years old where we teach them to build their own businesses, and we teach them all about emerging trends such as blockchain, artificial intelligence. They're learning how to code, build robotics. It's basically the club that I wished that I had when I was younger.
Awesome. Really appreciate the details there. And we'll dig into some of those specifics. So I'm really excited to get to Rocket Club. But first, let's go back to real estate. What drove you to get your real estate license and what was the process like?
So, as I said, I had this entrepreneurial bug. Like I really wanted to do something different from my peers. And when I got to Boston, my grandmother actually had a friend in Boston who was a real estate developer. And when I got to school, I met with him and he told me that I could actually get my license when I was 18 years old, which I was. So I thought I didn't really know much about having my real estate license. And I just thought it'd be really cool to get it. I was also trying to impress this girl that lived on my floor that I ended up marrying, which, I'm not saying it was because of the real estate license, but it certainly didn't hurt. So I got my license just because I thought it would be something that was interesting, but I had no real interest in real estate, didn't really know much about it in general.
Well, I think we both similarly get interested in a topic and start to dig in. And, I remember you doing that with real estate. And, that got us talking about potential investment opportunities and just about the real estate market in general. And then, right after our junior year of college, we bought our first property. And I was recently talking about it on another podcast, and I got a lot of interest in the fact that it was a frat house. So I would love to hear, kind of from your perspective, what you remember about that aspect.
The biggest thing that I remember is that we were learning about cap rates and the return on investment. And we saw that this building, even though it was broken down and pretty disgusting, it was going for a good price. The cash flow was super high because so many frat guys were living in this building. Looking back on it, like, would I have done the deal again? Probably, because the return on investment was just so incredible. And it was such a great way for us to get it, dip our feet into the market. We understood the clientele that was living there. Yeah, it was pretty disgusting. I remember some calls that we got to actually go fix stuff there. And we would go with Vin, and it was not the most pleasant couple of hours. But yeah, I mean, it was such an interesting experience because it was our first real step into real estate, and it was something that we could actually understand. And I thought we did a good job on that deal. We ended up making good money from it, and I think you sold it actually for a really solid profit.
Yeah, we had 6 profitable years and then sold it at a profit, fortunately. And I think that was probably a blessing in disguise that we got such a difficult property first. It definitely taught us a lot about the hard work that goes into properties. And yeah, I mean, obviously it was a great opportunity for us, along with our partner, Vin Vomero, to start Hodara Property Management and, spend some time learning that we didn't like managing properties.
Yeah. And I mean, looking back on it, I never should have put my name on a property management company. No one ever likes their property manager. It's very, very rare that you love your property manager. But, that's one of the beauties of starting your career early, right? You learn all of these mistakes early, and then you fix them as you go.
Tell me a little bit more about real estate in Boston and then what took you to New York.
So just taking a step back on the career. So my freshman, sophomore year, I was a real estate agent. I was just renting apartments to my friends moving off campus. Junior year, we did that first deal where we sold that building to you, and then we started to manage that. So then between my junior year and my first year out of college, I sold 21 multifamily buildings. So similar type of buildings it's similar to a frat house, but we started to make it a little bit more upscale. And it was from that initial chunk of money that I was able to pull out of that I was able to invest in the first building that I developed with Vin and this guy, Marco, at 110 Chester in Alston. And, that was really the beginning of starting to develop. And we realized quickly, how much more of an impact we can make on these buildings, on these areas, by actually doing the development versus selling the buildings and managing them. So from there, Vin and I did Raining Combos, which was the 4 buildings in Charlestown, did a deal in Chinatown. I'm trying to think of how many deals we did before I bought my first building in East Boston, maybe 8 or 9. And then I bought a building in East Boston, which was a very up and coming area. At the time, it was 2013. Developed it, pulled in kids from Suffolk University to come live there, and just started to change this area. And the career really started to take off at that point because I was able to acquire quickly in this area that people didn't really understand was super up and coming. So I was able to acquire, rent, 3, 5, 50 buildings in this area. And then my wife and I, again, the woman that I was trying to impress freshman year, we were both from New Jersey. We didn't know each other in New Jersey, but we met at Boston University, and we wanted to be close to our families who lived in New York, New Jersey. So she actually made the move first in 2015, moved to New York. And then I followed shortly after. And I started to develop buildings with you in Jersey City at that time, similar business model. And that's basically how we set up that initial cash flow that, a lot of that has helped allow us to do these other ventures that we're extremely passionate about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was something I was going to bring up. I mean, you really introduced me to a way to get some reliable income that would allow me to have the time to look into other areas of interest. And I thank you for that. And it certainly allowed me to kind of explore what I wanted to do as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And I think it's a different path than a lot of entrepreneurs take. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially coming out of college, they're reading about these really big startups, raising tons of venture capital, growing large companies. We were so focused on cash flow from the start. We were focused on getting a residual cash flow so that we could do the other things that we wanted to do. I mean, maybe we just got lucky with the times, right? Like, it wasn't the .com bubble. It wasn't quite yet like the app bubble. We were like kind of in the middle, and we were in an industry that was most kids in college weren't really going into. So in some ways, I think we lucked out. Yeah. And it's just been great that it's given us the ability to do these other ventures.
Yeah. So in terms of those other ventures, can you talk about sort of the origination of Rocket Club and, how that started? I mean, I remember us having conversations about you looking into, opportunities in the education space, but, it was really incredible to see the evolution into Rocket Club.
Yeah. I mean, like all entrepreneurs like you hear about something, you learn about something, you get really excited, and you just start to dig in. You don't necessarily have the huge vision off the bat. You just get interested and you dig in. So for me, I was developing buildings with you in Jersey City. I'm originally from Westfield, New Jersey. So I sponsored a hackathon, which was middle school and high school students coming, building apps, building robotics. And then I was the judge at the end of the competition. And, I was asking these brilliant kids, what are you going to do with these, artificial intelligence apps, or like a robot that one of these kids made out of a soda can? I was like, what are you going to do with this now? And they had no idea. They never thought about actually using their STEM skills, their science, technology skills, to do something business related with it. And at the same time, my nephews, who at the time were 6 and 7 years old, they were really into geode rocks, and they wanted to start a business cracking open and then selling geode rocks. And I was actually amazed that when they asked me about doing that, they were actually able to understand revenue, expenses, profit, how they were going to market this business. And this all happened within like 2 weeks of each other. And I saw an opportunity. I was like, are there any programs out there that actually mix learning coding, robotics, all of these cutting edge technology things with entrepreneurship? And my first gut reaction was, let me look for a franchise out there that does this, because I would just love to invest in this just to get this out there. And there was nothing out there. I looked into Code Ninjas, Mathnasium, all of these franchises. None of them mixed the two, entrepreneurship and STEM. So that was my first lightning bulb. And I was just like, wow, there's a real opportunity here. So I took a space out in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is really close to New York City. One of the people that was working with me in real estate at the time came on as like the head of that location. It was actually like a physical location. We built a curriculum, leveraging our contacts with people like you and other entrepreneurs and engineers that we knew. And we opened up Rocket Club as a physical location in February of 2019. And the business has obviously changed a lot since that first location opened. But that was how it originally started.
It's an exciting story. And I mean, to think that there are all these kids out there learning these incredible skill sets, but not getting taught how to translate that into success in the real world, which is via business, was, that's surprising. But I'm really glad that you found that area. I think that these kids are going to have such an incredible leg up on so many others because of kind of the way that they've been taught, not just the fact that they know these skills, but that they're getting an understanding of how to monetize these things.
Yeah, exactly. And, you look at some of the people who monetarily have the most success. I personally, I know you feel this way too. We look at how you quantify success in different ways. But if you just look at people who have the most monetary success out there, they learned how to code, build robotics, build their own business before the time that they were like 15, 16 years old. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, these people were learning these skills super early. And, as I've learned more about the neuroscience of children that are between 7 and 14 years old, they're like sponges. They are picking up everything that you're teaching them. They are at a different point in their lives than adults who have so many other responsibilities and stresses in their life. It's the perfect time to actually learn these skills. And the way that those skills translate as those kids grow up, that's something that I'm so excited about, right? Because we're only like 2.5 years into Rocket Club, and we're already seeing these incredible success stories. But to actually see what's going to happen 10, 15 years from now, that's going to be so much fun. I can't wait for that.
That is certainly one of the most exciting things to me about it. Just looking at it, I mean, seeing the incredible work that kids are doing at Rocket Club, and just they're already, creating businesses that are better than plenty that adults have created. And to think that these are kids ages 7 to 14 and have their entire lives ahead of them. And, I can only imagine what they're going to do with this base of knowledge and education.
Me too. And, they're having so much fun with it. Their parents are so proud of them. Their peers are amazed by what they're doing. One of the coolest things, though, is just how socially conscious all of these members are. And that really, I mean, we obviously applaud that. We do our best to include that in the curriculum, but that is very much coming from them. They're very concerned about the environment. They're concerned about equal rights for people, and they want to integrate those concepts into their business, which I find to be incredible, and something that through their businesses, they're able to actually have a larger platform to help those different causes. I think it's really cool.
I mean, it's amazing to hear that, this generation or this segment of kids has that way of thinking, because I think you and I have that very much just in business in general. We can do things that do well or make money, but you always want to be making a positive social impact. And the fact that these kids already have that ingrained in them at this stage is going to, be the foundation of a lot of really thoughtful, socially conscious businesses in the future.
Absolutely. And the more that they learn about the bigger picture issues as a child, the more that's going to have a ripple effect through their entire lives. I'll give you an example. So every month, in order to earn a Rocket Club Academy certificate, it takes 24 months. Every month, they're learning a new journey. So this last journey was all about climate science. So, we try to break it down to have one major goal that they're understanding. So right now, there's 418 parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere, and we need to get down to 350. So it's been really interesting to give them that specific milestone so that they can start to think through what actually has to happen for us as a global society to actually get there. So learning this type of stuff so young, I think, will have a really profound impact on the decisions that they make growing up.
Definitely. And just having those bigger pictures in mind has to be impactful for them. And, on one hand, the fact that when we were kids, we weren't really thinking about big picture things like that. Right. It makes me feel for them, feel bad for them in a way, but it's also going to make them grow up quickly. And there's no avoiding these topics in our world and, all the media that we have.
Yeah. Although I will say, we had other stresses in our childhood. I mean, different stresses. And even though the climate is such an important thing that they're thinking about, it's not as pressing as something as COVID, right? So, COVID is affecting everyone immediately. So they're immediately billions, if not trillions of dollars are going into things that will actually fix that in our society right now, right? There may be a time in these kids' lives, maybe 50 years from now, where there is something that is that pressing. And similar to a lot of these people that are in our parents' generation that grew up with the polio vaccine and all these other vaccines, and they were, waiting their turn basically to save the world. I think that they were able to actually jump in and create this vaccine so quickly and, pretty much save us all in a lot of ways. I think these members, these kids, they don't necessarily have to come up with that solution right now for climate change, but they'll be ready when that time comes. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I love that mindset, that they're going to be ready when their challenge arises and the immediacy is upon them. And you talked about COVID in that perspective as well. Can you talk a little bit about, where the business was before COVID and how it's evolved and, what sort that has brought to Rocket Club?
So before COVID, we opened February 2019. We saw instantly that there was a real need for this type of education. So we filled the Hoboken location, and then I opened one up in the Upper West Side, New York, Lower Manhattan, and then one in Montclair, New Jersey. And we were very close to filling them all right when COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we had 150 members between the four locations. They would come to the locations once a week. They had never met each other between the different locations. But then COVID hit, and obviously no one was actually going to the physical locations. People weren't going to school. They weren't going to work. And we had to make a decision because, I'm self-funding this business, and I just poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into building this thing out. And I made the decision that instead of trying to keep the physical locations, I would just focus on spending the money on keeping Rocket Club in these members' lives. So I made Rocket Club free between March of 2020 through September of 2020 so that it could stay at least in these members' lives virtually. So we started something called Rocket Club Live, where every single day we would host educational trivia. So based on things that they were learning physically in class, and then bring on a special guest. You were actually one of our first special guests that we ever brought on. And I'm sure you remember that, the members would start to ask you questions about your job. And we started to see quickly that the members between the different locations started to interact with each other. They started to, ask each other if they wanted to play Roblox after Rocket Club Live. And, we saw this networking effect that we didn't have previously. And then we decided, okay, we have Rocket Club Live going every day. We have all these special guests coming on. These members are learning about all these new jobs that they might want to do when they're older. What if we try to roll out curriculum virtually? So again, keeping it completely free, we rolled out our curriculum virtually, and we started to see that the members actually loved it. They were not enjoying so much going to Zoom class for their schools, but for some reason, the way that we were creating our curriculum through like a gamified system and giving out rocket fuel so that they could cash that in for prizes, and maybe the material that we were covering, maybe the fact that they're meeting people from different states, whatever it was, they were really into it. And we started to grow just by word of mouth. So we started with 150 members. And by the time COVID ended, we were up to 400 members. And at that point, because we were virtual, it was people from all over the country. And then we started to also get people from England and Ireland. So now we have about 500 members all over the country, England and Ireland. We teach the virtual class once a week. And then we have 22 communities in addition to that. So we have coding, robotics, 3D printing, public speaking, anything that these members are interested in, we're opening up a community. So some members actually join Rocket Club 7-8 times a week, where they used to only be coming once a week. And obviously we started charging again in September, and we were really lucky that we were able to figure out a pivot during COVID that actually ended up being way more beneficial for the business than it was beforehand.
Well, kudos to you. Like, that's tremendous work to be able to pivot, in that short period of time and actually have something better in the end. And I mean, I think that we can't give enough emphasis to the fact that you gave this to kids for free for 6 months so that they could keep this community in their lives. And that's what fueled the evolution. So, that was an amazing choice there. And, it's always fun to see you betting on yourself.
Thanks. Yeah. I feared too, like if we kept charging the parents would say, I'm already struggling so much with virtual learning for my children, which was a huge issue. We had people losing their jobs. So yeah, at the time, it honestly felt like a no-brainer. Like looking back on it, it's crazy to look back on. But at the time I was just like, we just got to keep this thing going, like there's no turning back.
And it was a time when kids were really craving community and support and even education, being out of their traditional routines. So I think you gave them a really great place to come together.
Thanks. Thank you. And thanks for being such a important part of it too. I was with, so I mean, another thing is too, we hired all of these instructors from all over the country. We were able to, that's the other thing, right? When you're not bound by a physical location, you can hire people from anywhere. And last weekend, we actually got to all finally meet in person. We'd all been working together for a year and we all never met each other. And one of the instructors, she's from Chicago, Mary, she during the beginning of when we pivoted to a virtual curriculum, all the members started to build their own lemonade companies. And we brought in advisors for each individual company. And you were the advisor for Mary's team. And she was saying how important it was to meet you so early on, like to meet an entrepreneur who is successful and really cared about the kids, cared about the experience, how important that was, and how that made her so excited about Rocket Club in general. So just like the kids are all really enjoying this network, I think the instructors are as well. I think as a society, we've just learned how to grow a network virtually like we never would have done before if it wasn't for COVID. And anyway, thank you so much for being part of the advisor board, because it's really helped change our members' lives and also the instructors.
Well, I've been honored to be involved and to get a front row seat to the evolution of such an incredible program. And, one thing I noticed that you mentioned was, this was the first time you guys had met in person, which is crazy. But, obviously this virtual opportunity really allowed your business to grow. It still allowed people to create a community and come together. But can you tell me a little about that, the value of the in-person still, and how it can augment, virtual?
Yeah. I mean, meeting them in person was so special. And I guess just the conversations we had were at a different, deeper level than we were having virtually. Yeah. And, and now that restrictions have been lightening up a little bit, the Delta's definitely thrown a wrench in things, but we started to host in-person robotics experiences for the members in the New Jersey and New York area. And the members have had just the most incredible time meeting people that they, knew virtually over the past year that they had met virtually, and now they got to meet in person. It's just a different experience, like it's so important to have both. I don't think that we can just live in a virtual world right now. I think that there needs to be both. And, my goal is to continue to figure out how to have both. I don't want it just to be virtual. But then again, like, it is amazing how much things have changed. So like, you meet someone in person, but then like maybe that changes the trajectory of all of the virtual meetings you have over the next week,
Exactly.
Like you need both. And that's something that we're striving towards having at Rocket Club for sure.
Yeah, I think that, the in-person meeting establishes a certain level of connection, but, I feel like so many of the conversations in this post-COVID world have been like, is it virtual? Is it in office? Like, certainly there's been some hybrid conversations, but the right answer is certainly some sort of hybrid. We've definitely gained a lot of ability virtually throughout this time being forced into it. But, I think that you also can't discount that in-person meeting.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, yesterday, right, we were working on some future curriculum, and I got to meet with Kristen and Haley, who, again, this was the second time I'd ever met them in person, although I've been working with them for over a year. From a how much stuff we got done perspective, it wasn't really that much, but it was just such a special experience to be with them for like 5 hours. And I feel like now all the future virtual meetings that we have will be different because of that connection. So it's just tough to quantify. It's something that we're all learning, right? Like we're all learning how this will work moving forward. But I agree, it's got to be hybrid. I totally agree.
And, you mentioned Rocket Club Live, this awesome live show you've been putting on for the kids that has really brought a lot of people together. I've been fortunate enough to attend a variety of them and listen in on some of the great speakers and the really impressive questions that the kids ask them. It's been a lot of fun. But, one thing that I consistently notice, and I know you do also, is pretty much probably every single person that goes on this show wishes they had something like this as a kid. And that's just such a testament to what you were doing, and seeing a guy like Steve Wozniak, really just glowing over this was remarkable for me as your friend and as your business partner. So, how does it make you feel to hear these successful entrepreneurs wishing they had something like this?
So special. I mean, I wish I had a more profound answer. All I could tell you is that, I've worked really hard my whole life to try to build something that I really felt was making a difference in a really positive way. And I don't know that I always felt that in my career, even though I really wanted it. So it's just really, really special. And more importantly, though, I hope that we're all correct, like I have the fire every single day to prove all these people correct, to prove Steve Wozniak correct, to prove you and I correct. Like, I really hope that we can prove that these members that are in Rocket Club are going to do some unbelievable things in their lifetime. But yeah, it's just a very special feeling.
Well, I'm very, very confident that will be the case. I can't wait to be reading about all the Rocket Club alumni and the incredible impact that they're having on the world. I know it's going to be in so many ways. And, I look forward to a future where you have a newsletter that tells me about them every month.
Oh, we should do that. I'm going to write that down. That's a good idea.
So you talked about always wanting to have something where you felt like you were making a positive impact. And, Rocket Club has given you that. Maybe just talk a little more about how that motivates you and just, when you really felt like you were finally doing something that could affect change. I don't know if there was a specific moment or something, but, when you really felt like you were doing that.
So I've seen the impact that we've had on our members that has been very profound. I'll give you a couple examples. There was one member who started, she was 25 months ago now. So after 24 months, she became certified. She started in the original Hoboken location. She was 9 years old when she started. And I remember meeting with her, discussing a business that she could start. And she was very adamant at the time that, her parents weren't entrepreneurs. She's not an entrepreneur. There's just no way that she's going to be able to start her own business. And, it took some time to really instill that confidence in her. But now looking forward 25 months, she started her own business. She has so much confidence. And I don't think that would have happened naturally without Rocket Club. I think that so many of us in our childhood are told things like, you can't do this, you're not good at this. And, think about the things in your own life that you don't think you're good at. You were probably thinking that as a child. So it's just so important to see that change. And now, we've had hundreds of members now. So I can see that now in so many different members. Members that thought that they weren't going to be able to be good at coding, all of a sudden are, coding apps that for their businesses. People that think that they're not good at math are able to figure out the market cap of a public company. We're seeing that over and over again. Another example that I saw was these 4 members who started during the pandemic. They started a lemonade company. They pitched their idea to Mark Randolph, the co-founder of Netflix, who was one of the guests on Rocket Club Live. He loved it so much that he decided that he wanted to invest in them. And now they're meeting every single week to sell their lemonade at like this town fair that they have in Weehawken, New Jersey. They all get together and do this. And at the beginning of the business, I remember the instructor was saying to me, they don't feel confident that they're actually going to be able to do this. And over time, not only did they build confidence, but they got so much confidence in someone who has been so successful. So, I think that seeing the impact on the members individually is such an exciting thing for me. And over time, I think that'll continue to be the thing that's most exciting. Members who say that they can't do something in the beginning and then watching the actual progress.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I can only imagine how exciting it is from your perspective to see those kids transform, in terms of their confidence. I really can only imagine what it's going to do for their lives. And, I love that this perspective that you've taken about looking at successful entrepreneurs and wondering about what they were doing as kids and,
right.
How much childhood can affect your success as an adult. I feel like not enough people think like that, but it's incredibly impactful and I appreciate it.
Yeah, and a lot of parents, they're instilling these thoughts in their children. We've had parents during admissions calls that say, no, there's no way that my child is going to be able to understand what the stock market is or what blockchain is. And our response to that is, well, if you tell them that that's the case, then that's the case. But we see it with every single member because we certify them, right? So they're taking these really hard exams to actually become certified in these things. They very much understand it. And to earn these building blocks early in life, they're going to understand something that I feel like, especially your parents and my parents instilled in us, we can do anything, right? No matter what it is, we will figure out a way to get it done. And that's what we're trying to instill in these members, whatever idea you have, you will figure it out. You don't think you can learn blockchain or coding or whatever it is? I'll tell you what, man or woman, you are going to figure this out. I promise you.
That's the mindset to have. And yeah, we were fortunate to be brought up being told that, we can do whatever we want. And I know you and I have both been the types that are like, we can find a way to get that done, whatever that is. I mean, I love that you're, instilling that in these kids. Is there anything else you want to make sure to share on Rocket Club?
I think the last question you brought up is really interesting, thinking about the childhoods of these really successful entrepreneurs who have come on Rock Club Live that are more successful than you and I even. Like they talk about what they were doing as children. And the number one thing that they really do talk about is the fact that they believed that they could do anything since the time that they were a kid. So I just think it's really interesting. Like I'm learning constantly, right? Like I'm coming from an entrepreneurship and then real estate background. So like I'm learning so much about education as I go, but there seems to be a very clear through line there where you need to be instilling in children from an early age that anything is possible and that, all of their dreams can come true. And if you tell them that it can't, they're going to believe you because children believe what you're telling them. So it's just, it's so interesting to learn about the childhoods of these really successful people. And I think that would be an interesting publication one day, or, I hope that we can get these stories out there to other people, because I think that it would be really impactful on parents, like the way that parents treat their children when their children tell them that they have some sort of idea. Because I'm sure you remember too, as being a kid, right? I'm sure that there were people that told you like, that's not going to work. And
always.
Yeah. And those types of thoughts are the ones that really have a long-term impact on a child and then as an adult. So,
right. And those people never go away, right? Like even when you're an adult, those people never go away. It's just, you have to believe in yourself enough to not care.
Right. And not everything you do is going to be successful. I mean, think about how many things that you and I have done together or individually that has not worked out, right?
Absolutely.
Like, it's okay. Like that.
I mean,
okay.
I've consistently preached that you learn the most from your failures. And I've certainly had a lot more failures than I've had successes, but all of those failures have very much informed the successes.
Yep. 100%.
All right. So if listeners want to learn more about Rocket Club, they can go to rocketclub.com. Anything else that would help people?
No, rocketclub.com. You can find us on Instagram.
So now, we've kind of covered Rocket Club, which I love so much and really excited to see where it goes. Again, getting back to just kind of innovators and impact and talking about, the importance of giving back. Is there an experience, from your childhood that showed you the importance of giving back, whether you were on the giving or receiving end?
That is a great question. Are there any from your childhood that you are really into?
The one that I tend to point out is just in terms of teaching me about giving back is, I don't know, like if it was a holiday weekend or what it was, but my parents, had all myself and my brother and my sister in their room. We were watching TV and, flipped the channel and there was a charity auction. And, my dad said, "Oh, well, what do you guys want?" And, we were like, "Oh, we really want that. That looks so fun." And, he ended up buying a handful of things on this TV charity auction. And we went to pick it up. And, my brother and sister and I were talking about how excited we were for the stuff. And we were driving home and we were like, "Oh, where are you going? This isn't the way home." "Oh, we're dropping all this off the orphanage. I just wanted to know like what kids liked." And, for us, and then getting to be part of the giving, it showed us like, we didn't need any of that. Like, we're fine. We want to give it to someone that's really going to make a difference for. And I think just that's a story that has reverberated with my siblings and me throughout our lives. And, fortunately, we were able to experience a lot of other things like that. We were lucky to have parents that instilled these values in us. And some people don't get that. So, some people are getting that through things like Rocket Club.
Man, that's such a good story. Interesting too, because the joy that you felt from doing that probably felt even better than actually getting the gifts. And over time, I see that in you. Like you get the most excited when we talk about stuff, you get the most excited when it's about doing something for someone else. It's interesting. It's like, if you're able to actually teach people how to have that feeling, and not teach someone, if you're able to give someone that feeling, then they're going to want that feeling for the rest of their lives, which I don't know how my parents did that with me. I mean, I remember during Hanukkah, we always had one night where we would choose a charity that we were really excited about. And my parents would donate to that charity. And I actually took that really seriously every year. I would always research which charity I really wanted them to donate to.
I mean, I love that. I think just associating the giving season with giving back is something that a lot of kids, don't have in their lives, whether, it's because they, aren't able to have that because they don't even have enough for themselves, or if it's their parenting's not great, whatever it might be.
Yeah. I do feel that if you're able to give a child an experience of giving back and they understand how good that feels, they're going to continuously want to do that for the rest of their lives. And, that's probably a really good question that we should be asking these entrepreneurs that are coming on Rocket Club Live, because so many of them are so giving and they really do care about social impact. We should ask them, were there things that you were doing early on that made you really excited about giving back? It's a really great question, Jeff. I love that question.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's something that my wife and I have talked about, we have one son now, and it's like, what are we going to do in his life to make sure he sees the importance of giving back? One thing we've talked about is, in the future, if we go on family vacations, let's find some kind of active service that we can do in the local community on each trip, things like that. So, we're going to need to have discipline to stick with the things that we're coming up with, but I think it can be tremendously impactful.
I got to think more about how it truly makes you and I so happy, like deep down, more so. Actually, I don't even like getting gifts. Do you? I think it's really hard to get a gift sometimes.
I'd rather not receive gifts these days.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to be able to get most things that I want, and sometimes it can create an awkward interaction. But certainly I understand that it's the thought that counts, that someone's thinking of you. But I'm more into experiential gifts than material gifts.
Totally. Yeah. When someone gives you something that truly means something, those are the best. I love those. I do love those.
All right. Well, one question. The last thing, I'm hoping to ask all of my guests this. If you could snap your fingers and fix one thing in the world, what would it be? And how do you think that change would reverberate?
So if I could snap my fingers, I would want everyone to have their basic needs met. This really clicked in my head when I was listening to one of the latest Joe Rogan podcasts, where he was interviewing this woman who escaped from North Korea. And she was explaining, he was asking her opinions on things and what her opinions were when she was in North Korea. And she was like, Joe, I never thought about those things at the time. The only thing I was thinking about was survival, right? She was trying to get clothing to stay warm. She was trying to find bugs to eat for protein. I think that if globally we are able to actually provide the basic necessities for everyone around the world, we are going to be able to start to think on another level. So, we all think about our hobbies, right? Going to hockey games, all of the things that we think about on a daily basis is only because our basic needs are met. And then we're able to think about the next level of things, like how do we affect climate change? How do we do good things for other people? I think that if everyone has their basic needs met, we are going to start to be able to tackle much larger issues globally. And I think that would be something that would ripple across the entire world.
Yeah, that's a very powerful answer. And it puts that in a really good perspective, because I think that people getting their basic needs met has become political. And in reality, it would just help level up our society.
Plus, it's just human rights, right? Every human deserves to not have to worry about where they're getting their next meal. It would have a profound impact on the world. I sincerely believe that.
Absolutely. And I think, that's why we talk about it in terms of snapping your fingers, because, theoretically it's great. And it's just, we have to find the path there, which is certainly a very difficult one, unfortunately, to wade through. But hopefully we see that in our lifetime.
Definitely.
Well, Alex, as always, it's been amazing talking, and really appreciate you being my first guest on People Are the Answer. And I think that you embody what it is I'm trying to explain in terms of people being the answers to the problems in the world. And it's been awesome hearing you. And thank you so much, not only for this podcast, but for always believing in me and inspiring me throughout my career. And I look forward to all the many things that we'll continue to do together over the years.
Me too. I can't wait. I feel like we've only just begun, Jeff.
Agreed.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again so much for listening to my discussion with Alex. It's worth noting that this recording was done before the Joe Rogan vaccine controversy. So I just thought that should be known since Alex mentions his show. And to keep up with People Are the Answer, go to peoplearetheanswer.com. Thanks.